In this lesson, we'll continue planning for and placing text content for the inside of our brochure. Alright, so in the last lesson, we learned how to incorporate break characters to direct the flow of text within our frames. Now, where we left off in the last lesson, we still have some overset text here in this last text frame, and that's okay. We're actually going to need to create what's known as a style to actually handle that. But, before we get into styles, I want to go ahead and place in the text for this other half of our brochure and get that ready so everything is in its proper place before we go and begin making styles. So in the last lesson, we used the Control-D Place menu to go ahead and drop in our Microsoft Word file. Now, I do have another Microsoft Word file here formatted with some very basic styles, and this is the one we're going to use for the inside of our brochure. Now, notice there's a little bit different type of content here. We also have a bulleted list here that we're going to bring in. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and close this Microsoft Word file out, and we'll say no to saving changes. And let's come over here and let's go ahead and try and bring in our Microsoft Word file using MiniBridge. So I'm going to come over here to MiniBridge, and I've already browsed to that folder, and we have our content inside and our content outside Microsoft Word files. It doesn't look like you can actually see an icon for those in Bridge, but you can still see the file name. So I tell you what, we'll just go ahead and start bringing this in here. Now, before I drop this in here on our first panel, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. And if you remember, this panel right here has the potential to be visible as it sits next to this panel. So we need to kind of keep in mind that those two panels need to balance when they're viewed next to each other. So let's go ahead and just grab our Microsoft Word file. We're going to drag that in here, just like so. And notice we get our loaded text cursor again. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw in a frame using this loaded text cursor. So we'll just click there. I'm going to go ahead and draw in a frame. Let's go ahead and pull it down to right about there. Now, notice here that, let me just zoom in for you. Notice here this bulleted list is actually been broken down and the bullets have actually been removed. Now, the reason for this is because InDesign is remembering the last time that we placed in a document and we went into those additional placing options, and we actually told InDesign to remove all style formatting from the file before placing the document into InDesign. So that bulleted list has actually been removed here because InDesign handles bulleted lists a little differently than Microsoft Word. That's okay though, we can still see our bulleted list right here. And I tell you what, maybe we want to take this text frame right here and let's just go ahead and pull this up to where this first frame only includes this distinct area. So this next frame that we're going to maybe place in a frame down here below for this next bulleted list. Now, it might be kind of nice to separate this bulleted list by using some kind of a color bar or something like that, just to call attention to it, really make it stand out from our normal body copy here. So tell you what, let's go ahead and click on our overset text red plus sign, and let's go ahead and draw in a text frame right here. Just draw that right over that spatial zone. And we've created a threaded text frame, and we've got here our bulleted list, or what will be our bulleted list when we get done. So, it might be actually kind of nice to go ahead and move the title of this frame up here above to sit on top of the gutter between this spatial zone and this spatial zone. So I tell you what, I'm going to come in here and grab my type tool using the T keyboard shortcut. Let's draw in another frame right there. And we'll go ahead and connect this frame into our story just by clicking on that output and dropping it on top of that frame. So now we will need to go ahead and include a frame break here because we just want the title to appear in this frame. So let's come up here and we're going to go to Type, Insert Break Character, Frame Break, and replacing that hard return with our frame break. So again, we need to align this box to the bottom if we want that to be consistent with the header frames that we've already done. But I might want this one to be a little different. I mentioned that maybe we want this to be sort of a color bar, and maybe we actually want to align this text to the center. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key right now and double click on that frame, and let's go ahead and align this one to the center, just like so. And we'll deselect that. Alright, great. So now let's go ahead and take a look at our bulleted list here. Now, we actually got a hard return right here that probably shouldn't be there. So let's go ahead and take that out. Just an extra hard return that is a result of bringing in our Microsoft Word file. So let's go ahead and stretch this down and see, yeah, there's the header for our next section here. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and replace this hard return right here. Let's go ahead and replace that with another frame break. So dropping in a frame break there. And we still have our overset text icon. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, and we're going to actually handle that here in just a little while. So we're ready to come back over here and plan for text on our next panel here. So thinking about the placement of these frames here, it might be kind of nice to do something similar to what we did before in having a single column of text here, and then maybe we could put in some carryover text into a column here. We don't want to get too close to where we've got this chart dropped in. If you can see here, we've dropped that into where the header for the chart is right above this gutter, and then the chart itself sits up in the top left-hand portion of this next spatial zone. So I want to make sure that the text doesn't get too close to that, and we may actually be able to handle that with some style sheets later. But let's go ahead and draw in our text frames first. Let's go ahead and maybe think about placing in another text frame right here for the header of this body of this copy that's going to be below. So let's click on that red plus sign. Draw in another text frame right here. Alright, so let's just zoom in on that. You can see here that we actually have the last of our bulleted list carrying over. So what we need to do is, let's go ahead and stretch this text frame down just a little bit. And there we go. You can see our frame break right there. That's going to send the next text to this next frame up here at the top. So we'll go ahead and remove this hard return right here, and let's go ahead and insert another frame break right there in place of that hard return. And then we're going to align this text frame to the bottom just by simply Alt double clicking on the text frame and say bottom. You could also use that shortcut that's up here in the control panel. It's a lot faster for me to just go ahead and Alt double click it, just so I don't have to pull that control panel away and resize that again. So I'm just going to continue to create text frames here just by clicking on the red plus sign and drawing in a new frame. So we'll draw one in there. Let's go ahead and draw one in here as well. Now I know that this is still overset beyond this frame. And I tell you what, for right now, let's go ahead and just drag this down, and it'll overlap our chart. I want to see where the bottom of that body of copy is. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. There's our header right there. So let's replace this hard return with another frame break. And I tell you what, it might be easier if you're coming through here using multiple frame breaks to just load one up into your clipboard. Let's come over here and copy a frame break, selecting it there, and hit Control-C on your keyboard. Let's come over here, and now we'll go ahead and replace this with a frame break. Just like that. Just by pasting that in with a Control-V. So we've broken that frame. Let's go ahead and continue our story up here, and let's think about where we're going to apply text to this next panel. Now, based on the placement of our photographs, we have a few options. We could place it here, here, or we've got this nice area right here, and I think that's probably where I'm going to go ahead and drop this. So let's go ahead and draw in a text frame. Draw it in right there. And as you can see, our text is again overset. So we have a couple of hard returns right here. We could go ahead and just select those and remove those. Just like so. And you can see there is the end of our story. So, well, it looks like we actually deleted a little too much. Let's go ahead and undo that here. Just making sure we get rid of that hard return. There's our header. So we've got our entire story placed onto this second spread, and let's come back over here to this bulleted list. And we talked about wanting to maybe call attention to this, maybe by placing a color bar here, maybe behind the header for this bulleted list. Well, this is actually really easy to do. Now, let's talk about appearance attributes for just a moment and how we can assign those. Now, we can actually assign appearance attributes to the text inside this frame, or we can assign them to the frame itself. So I know that it may sound a little bit confusing right now, but let's just take a look down here at our color swatches in our tool panel. Now you see here we have a solid one for our fill, and then we have one that looks like a little stroke below that for a stroke appearance attribute. So notice that right now they're both set to no color. Let's come over here and look at our swatches panel, and you can see here that we see the same thing. Now let's come over here and double click on the text frame and select this word right here. Now notice that now we have a colored fill here. We have a black fill assigned to the text. Now we also have here a little T that's highlighted right there as well. So that's indicating that we have text selected, whereas before when we had just the frame itself selected, we've got this little square selected here. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and apply some appearance attributes to this. I'm going to go ahead and pick one of these colors here. I went ahead and sampled some colors out of some of the photographs that we're using here. Let's go ahead and maybe select this fill color right here to match our footer, and maybe we could actually drag this over to the side and all the way to the bleed. So I know that this is going to mess with our positioning of our text, but we'll actually handle that with a style here in just a moment. So we've actually assigned an appearance attribute to the frame itself. So let me switch to preview mode here for you. And you know, maybe that's actually a little bit thick. So let's go ahead and resize that just a little bit here. Let's resize it about to there. So we've actually created a distinctive look there for that bulleted list, and that's really going to call attention to this nicely. So, you know, we've been dropping our type into here without formatting it. So right now we're, again, working with this standard typeface, which is Minion Pro, and it's at 12 points, which is rather large. So we could really use to call some attention to our headers, really make those pop out a little bit more, and maybe use a little more appropriate typeface for this type of project. So in the next lesson, we'll begin formatting our text, and we'll start by creating character styles.